Member for Lac St. Anne Parkland.
Yes, Madam Speaker, and thank you so much. And thank you to the member from Gold Bar. Honestly, I haven't had my dose of tall tales and revisionist history for some time. And I had to take the mask off. I would put some earplugs in to filter some of that out, but I really like to hear that solid story. Just stick to it, partner. Your speaking points haven't missed a beat yet. So when he isn't up in Zama Lake talking about how thick the mosquitoes are, that he can't see the man standing next to him for all that thickness of mosquitoes. It might have been something else that was thick up in Zama Lake that the member might have been stepping in. When he isn't talking about what's happening to parks, when he isn't scaring people about this scare, that scare, the health scare, this thing, he likes to jump to other points, which are his speaking points. So he wanted a member from this side to not use speaking points. You got your wish. The other thing that I'd like to talk about here, Madam Speaker, on motion 11, or sorry, MR 11, well, unlike the NDP, we didn't take 9 months to form government. We actually started getting to work right away because we actually had a plan. So if we did get voted in, Madam Speaker, that we'd actually go to work right away. Now, back in the day before COVID had hit, this is back in 2019, I got an email. So I hear the disdain coming from that member's voice all the time when it comes to backbenchers and what our roles are. Well, it's difficult for me to understand what that is and how much disdain that member really has as being a former cabinet minister until I look at an email from Robin Love. Well, she explains to us as new backbenchers of how they were treated as NDP backbenchers. They literally had no voice. And I can rest assured you, Madam Speaker, this government listens to us backbenchers. We're called private members. Private members that it included in lots of conversations here in this floor, and we get involved with the government. So I'm going to get back to the point here because I'm sure the member opposite from Gold Bar is going to light his hair on fire or maybe go see all those thick mosquitoes up in Zama. So I'll get back over to this. So I'd like to rise today in opposition to motion 11, return 11. So our government's committed to working with Alberta businesses to ensure they are contributing to our economy in the best way possible. Following up the promises made during our campaign last year, we pledged the general income tax. We'd cut that, help stimulate the economy. Well, again, Madam Speaker, it may seem an old phrase. We don't make promises we can't keep. Circumstances may change along the way, but this hasn't changed. The tax rates went up. We got to lower them down to be more competitive in these jurisdictions. So when we inherited this, it was a fiscal mess. And Albertans wanted a change, Madam Speaker, so that's why we're carrying on with this. And like I'd mentioned before, rather than taking 9 months to actually form government, we were in there right away working from day one. And one of those items was to reduce that tax rate down to 8%. So beginning last April, our government did all the necessary background work for that change. We implemented it in a timely manner. For the information of the member from Lethbridge West who had introduced this motion, and obviously the member from Gold Bar, there were other avenues to get this information other than through a motion to return. In other words, Madam Speaker, this would be incredibly time-consuming. And unlike that member saying that all these people are just sitting there waiting for their questions to come in, they're actually doing other work. It's not busy work. It's not like they're just sitting around waiting for questions to come in, that's their only job. Trust me, in this government, people are actually working. They're not just looking around at each other. And quite frankly, the bureaucracy loves it because busy hands, they're getting back to work doing the government's business and the business of the people, Madam Speaker. I feel like Happy Gilmore. I just want him to heckle a little bit more so I can catch more. It gives me an vim and vigor to keep going. As it stands, Alberta is still dealing with repercussions of COVID-19, the pandemic in our province and our economy. The request of this size brought up in this manner requires a significant amount of time and resources for the department to compile. This is time much better spent focusing on pandemic response and our recovery. The aptly named job creation tax cut put forth by our government last year is an investment in Alberta's future. As I said before, you can't tax your way to prosperity, and by reducing that corporate income tax rate from 12 to 10 in January this year and then down from 10 to 8 in July this year, we're creating an environment for businesses to create jobs, boost production, and that'll help rebuild our economy. Now, this tax cut is not a handout to corporations because you can't give something back that you haven't collected yet, Madam Speaker, and I know you understand that, and I'm going to say that again. You can't collect a big sum of money on something when you haven't taxed it in the first place because it hasn't been generated. And when you drive out business and you drive down that economy, you can put it at 100% tax if you have zero to collect. There's nothing there. Simple, simple. I know they'll call that trickle-down economics, but I can't speak freaky-deaky socialist to get a translation. Now, this tax cut's not a handout, as I mentioned. It's to reduce some of those burdens. and it's to help create the jobs. We want to make Alberta one of the most tax competitive jurisdictions in North America, as the job creation tax cut does. Creates more jobs for Albertans, better revenue for industry, and in turn, Madam Speaker, a stronger economy. A study by the University of Calgary School of Public Policy shows that for every dollar increase in corporate tax revenue, due to a rate increase, aggregate wages in Alberta declined by at least 95%. In other words, taxing high amounts means lower wages for Albertan workers. Oil field jobs are not the same as flipping burgers. Let's let that sink in a bit. You ran out 180,000 people so you could make people come from Ontario and change light bulbs. It wasn't the right economics that we wanted to follow in the province. So this is not a threat by corporations. This is not a tactic by corporations. This is fact. If there is less money coming out into businesses, there will be less money flowing out. Pretty basic stuff. So from that explanation, I hope that one thing is clear. Our government cares about Albertans. That's why we're here. Most of us left our normal lives so we could step in and fill the tide, to fill the void and the issues the Albertans were having because of that last group. And again, to all the Albertans out there watching, we're going to keep doing our job. We're going to keep moving the ball downfield, and we're going to fix those mistakes, despite the rhetoric and all the noise that the opposition may make, and the hair waving and the gnashing of the teeth, etc., or, pointing out these other scares that don't exist. By reducing those taxes, we're facilitating a stronger economic landscape that allows businesses to grow, create jobs, and get Albertans back to work. And I believe, in the opinion of the government, also transparency is key to a democratic government. Absolutely 100%. Transparency is key to a democratic government. Therefore, I'd like to remind the members opposite that if they choose, they can access the information that they want through FOIP or any other similar request available to all Albertans. However, this motion for return diverts attention away from the current issues, and we want to keep people focused at the task at hand, getting the economy rolling and dealing with COVID. Madam Speaker, I say again, there's other ways to get access to the information. We invite the members opposite to request this information, again, for their edification through FOIP. The amount of time and resources needed to fill this motion, again, takes away valuable time from the folks that are doing other work. And unlike how we manage government, I'll repeat that again because they're heckling, Madam Speaker, they just won't let it sink in. Those folks are not sitting around on their hands waiting for them to pick up the phone for when they make that call for a request that could be taken elsewhere. And that member that just made this motion was a cabinet minister, as was the member that just presented it. And they should well know, if they manage their departments properly, that those folks are busy. They're not just waiting on bated breath for the next call from this place. I'm going to go back to a speaking note here, and I'll give him a little chance to get me on that. So, Madam Speaker, as I said earlier, it's the policy of this government to make the best deal for Albertans. Whatever we do through these grants to stimulate local economies or tax cuts to create jobs across the province and strengthen our economy, we do it for the betterment of this province and these people, Madam Speaker. If we're going to weather the next few months of the COVID-19 pandemic and its repercussions, we need an Alberta that's competitive, economically stable, and ready to support Albertans to protect both lives and livelihood during this pandemic. And the other thing I'd like to throw in there, Madam Speaker, we're going to make sure that Albertans are strong. We're going to make sure that we're doing the work they sent us here to do. And in essence, I would like to ask all the other members of the Legislative Assembly, hopefully my remarks are more compelling than my honourable member from across the way, that this motion to return 11 absolutely should be rejected, and there's other ways and avenues to do it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.